Welcome to the long-awaited 2-year update. In this video I will answer some of your most frequently asked questions. For example, why am I not on finasteride or minoxidil? And is my hairline too high or too low? I will show you the scars on my donor area now 2 years later, and we will of course also take a look at my crown area. Will I need a second hair transplant? As you can tell, it's still thin. Then I'll talk a little bit about my experience now working at the clinic where I had my procedure, and I'll also show some results that I've seen coming in and out of the clinic in the past 1.5 years. I will also tell you why Sweden is the new Turkey. For those of you who now watch me for the very first time, I'll give a super quick recap. I had my hair transplant about 2 years and 4 months ago at Acacia Medical Hair Clinic in Sweden, Stockholm. Before that, my hair looked like this. I had 3,500 grafts transplanted. So first off, let's dive into some questions I have not addressed in previous videos. So I've told you earlier that I am not on minoxidil or finasteride, and one very common follow-up question has been why. I will tell you. It is not because of fear of possible side effects. It's strictly due to the fact that I am not the kind of person who can maintain a routine for very long. That might seem or sound strange to some of you, but I know me better than you know me, right? So with that said, if I were to be on, for example, finasteride and with some kind of miracle be able to keep that up for, say, 2 years, I would eventually fall off. And then it would all have been a waste of effort. What I do to strengthen my hair is PRP injections, which is now something I do twice a year, so once every 6 months. A few people have commented on my hairline being too high, and some even say it's too low. For me personally, I really think it's perfect, but not too perfect. So just the right amount of close to perfect. I just couldn't be happier with how it turned out. When drawing the hairline, the clinic has a couple of things that they take into consideration. One thing being the muscle that we have in the forehead. So they want to make sure they stay above the forehead muscle, or whatever the term is. You don't want a completely straight line because that's considered feminine, so you want it a bit curved. They also think about the symmetry, dividing your face into thirds. Another comment that I want to address that I've received a handful of times is that I'm allegedly lying about the time it took for me to get my results. For context, these comments have been on my video where I covered the first 4 months of the process. This is ridiculous, as I have absolutely no interest or gain in being untruthful. I had my hair transplant on the 18th of June, as proven by the information in this photo, taken 2 days later. And if we then look at the information in this photo, we can see that it was taken exactly 4 months after my operation. Now, one very important thing here is to know that I had a very unusually quick recovery or result. So if you're going through a hair transplant journey of your own, don't compare yourself to mine or anyone really online. You have to give it a full year before you evaluate and know if you've had a successful hair transplant or not. Now, before having a look at the scars in my donor area and also how the crown looks now 2 years after, let's talk a little bit about my experience now working at the clinic where I had my procedure done. First off, let me shortly explain why and how I got the job. Acacia Medical is Scandinavia's most famous and reputable hair clinic, but still a fairly small business in terms of employees and management. So while the owner of the clinic, Firo, was hoping to find someone else besides himself to do all the consultations because he wanted to focus more on just being the manager, he saw a former patient, me, online, talking open-heartedly about his procedure or my procedure. One thing very important to him was that the guy that you guys meet at the clinic has done the procedure himself, and obviously it has to have been done at Acacia Medical. Anyway, when I started my employment, I still had my doubts about hair transplants being something that truly works. I had seen the results of former Acacia Medical patients online, such as the influencer Alexander De Rosso, whose result was the reason for me choosing this clinic. And then obviously I had then gotten a very successful result myself, but I still had my doubts. I still thought that maybe I was just one of the few lucky ones. As I have now worked at the clinic for 1.5 years, I've already gotten to see people come in with bad hair and then come back 1 year later with a huge smile on their faces. So now I know that this is something that truly works for most people. I'm not gonna say everyone because there are exceptions, but all in all, hair transplants truly work. What's equally amazing, to me at least, is that I've met people from all over the world who has traveled to Acacia to do their transplant here in Sweden because of my previous videos.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously your results now, seeing you in person, I mean, it's just really, really, really good. Yeah.
Thank you.
I mean, definitely. And yeah, one more thing, you know, with the team, like in Turkey with that clinic, you don't really know, you know, there's like several teams, like 10 different teams or whatever, so you don't really know who you're going to get. And here, yeah, Simon told me it's basically the same team. So
always the same, yes.
It's always the same team, right? So I was like, hey, that's definitely, yeah, that just makes it easy for me, you know, the choice, the decision.
This hair transplant clinic is very highly rated, especially here in Sweden. I'm quite good at doing research. I looked at many reviews, many websites. I even had to translate some websites from Swedish to English to see reviews. But yeah, Acacia Medical ranked very, very highly for that. And that's what brings me here, especially in your video as well. That's what really encouraged me.
So I've met people from all over Europe, the US, and even Australia, which is super cool.
I made it. I'm in Stockholm, Sweden. I'm ready for my procedure in a couple days. I live in West Virginia, and I came across your video and watched it, and you were nice enough to answer any questions that I had, and it really opened up my eyes to different possibilities of where I can go to get a quality experience and save myself some money. So that's what I did.
Cool. So the plan was originally to do it in your country?
Yes. There was a clinic about 2 hours away from me, and instead I flew 12 hours away.
Now, if you want to come here as well, now would be the best time, money-wise. The exchange rate on the Swedish krona is at rock bottom, which makes it very cheap for most foreigners to come here now. So you could say that Sweden is the new Turkey. Now lastly, let's have a look at my current situation. First off, we have the donor area. Here's how the scars look now 2 years after. As you can tell, I keep my hair very short on the sides and in the back, a so-called skin fade. This is due to educational purposes, you might say, because when I meet patients at the clinic, I want them to be able to have a look at the scars in my donor area, so they know what to expect. Now, when I have my hair a bit grown out, you can't see a thing, which is amazing. And then, what about my crown area? Will I need a second hair transplant? I will show you. So let me come here by the window in good lighting. When I had my consultation with Acacia Medical and the owner Firo 2.5 years ago, he made it very clear that we would do 3,500 grafts, which is the maximum in Sweden at least, because if you go bigger than that, there are risks such as over-harvesting, which is not something you want to do. So I went for 3,500 grafts, which would make me completely happy with the front, and it did. And then it would be like 500 grafts left to be able to put on the crown, which would not make that much of a difference. So already back then we talked about me having to go for a second transplant in the future. So I have from the start have had my mind set on that. So what's the status now 2 years later? As you can tell, it's still thin, but I'm not bald, so I don't feel I need to rush things. We'll see how things look a year from now and take it from there. All in all, I'm super happy still about my hair transplant now 2 years later.